What's up, guys? My name's Stu. The Constitution III stats have been officially announced, so let's take a look. So, some of you might remember that I put out a Theorycraft video of the Constitution III not that long ago, and while that video was a joke, because I was trying to make it into the worst ship that you've ever seen, because of that, I feel like I'm going to get blamed for some of the elements of this ship. Just remember that I have no real power over Cryptic. Cryptic's going to do what Cryptic's going to do. I have no influence over what happens to ships. God, I wish I did, though. Here it is, the Constitution III, aka the Titan A, aka the Enterprise G, though Cryptic is not acknowledging the Enterprise G part. The Enterprise F isn't going anywhere for Stowe's timeline. This ship will be coming out on PC on June 8th, which should be the same day that this video goes live, so if you're watching this, the ship's probably already in the game. At least on PC, console, that's going to be on a later date. You guys know how this works. Console, you'll probably see this in a month or two. And let's just rip off this band-aid right now. It is a promo ship. This is going to be in the Infinity promo boxes, so it is going to be very expensive and difficult to obtain. That said, there's always next year's event campaign. Okay, let's jump into the first of the things that I'm probably going to get blamed for. It is a Miracle Worker cruiser. Even when I said that as a joke, honestly, Miracle Worker really does fit the vibe of this ship because, Miracle Worker has a lot of roots in like an engineering focus. And again, that fits perfectly for the Constitution III because on the Titan A, Captain Shaw came up through the engineering track, so he is a former engineer, so engineering really fits the vibe of the Constitution III. All the more reason to make it a cruiser as well. And even if Shaw wasn't an engineer, this would still probably be a cruiser because pretty much every Constitution has been some kind of cruiser in the past, so yeah, cruiser, it just works. The only exception is the Mirror Warship, and that is a Mirror Universe ship, so that's kind of why the exception is there. The seating is not double Miracle Worker though I don't think a lot of you are going to like the secondary seat because it's pilot. Yep, they really gave this thing a pilot seat. Alright, let's dive into specifics. It's got a hull modifier of 1.4 and a shield modifier of 1.2, both of which are reasonably high, so this ship is going to be very tanky, which is a little surprising given how many holes were punched into it throughout Season 3 of Picard. This is the other thing I'm probably going to get blamed for. It's got a 4-4 weapons layout, which genuinely surprises me. Given that this is a promo ship, I would have expected this to be a 5-3. It's also got 4 device slots, which is to be expected for a cruiser. In the bridge officer seating, it has a lieutenant commander tactical, an ensign level tactical, a commander level engineering / Miracle Worker, a lieutenant commander science / pilot seat, and a lieutenant level universal. Okay, the seating isn't bad. It's got a good amount of tactical seating, so you're going to get all your essentials for your tactical buffs. It's not overburdened with too much engineering seating, which is always one of the big curses of cruisers. This only has the one commander level engineering seat, and it's also the Miracle Worker seat, so you don't have to worry about that. I don't think a lot of people are going to like that the pilot seat is also on the science seat because one of the advantages of pilot these days is that Clean Getaway is also an unconventional systems trigger. But putting this on the science seat means you're not going to gain an additional unconventional systems trigger because science seating, you're already going to be using that for your uncon procs. If anything, you're just going to be trading, scramble sensors for Clean Getaway because Clean Getaway is better because it has a shorter cooldown, but again, it's not really a huge trade up. And of course, then there's the universal seat, which again, I would probably use as another science seat for more unconventional systems triggers. In the consoles, we've got 4 tactical, 5 engineering, 2 science, and 1 universal because this is a Miracle Worker. So again, a good amount of consoles layout. We're not short on tactical consoles. 4 is a really nice amount for a cruiser. And then the engineering and science, they're kind of not going to be making a huge difference, though they are working on making that into a difference with these new R&D consoles, which I'll get into that in a little bit. It's got a turn rate of 9, an impulse modifier of 0.15, and inertia rating of 40. The turn rate and inertia rating are about what I expected for this. Actually, these are identical to what the legendary Discovery Constitution has, but the impulse modifier is actually lower than I expected, given that, this thing has like 6 impulse engines on it. I expected that to be a bit higher. For the power bonuses, plus 15 to weapons power, which is where you want it, plus 5 to shields, and plus 10 to engines. I would have preferred that plus 5 in aux power instead of engines, but what can you do? They actually gave this thing a battle cloak. That really surprised me. I was not expecting that. I figured they would have just incorporated that into the console or somehow, or even just given it the standard cloaking device console that comes with the tier 5 or tier 4 Defiant. I think it's the tier 5. But yeah, they just gave this thing a battle cloak, which is very uncommon to see on Federation ships, especially cruisers. It's got the full array of cruiser communication auras, so it's got the command aura for strategic maneuvering, weapon system sufficiency, shield frequency modulation, and attract firepower. It's a full miracle worker, so it will have the cyclical quantum slipstream drive and the innovation abilities. And it is a standard cruiser, so it will have the standard cruiser mastery package, which is nothing but tanking traits, so those are lame. The ship will also come with a unique weapons type called narrow angle phaser beam arrays. These are new types of phasers. They're just normal beam arrays, except their firing arcs are a little more narrow than standard beam arrays. I think in 10-4 Weekly, it was like 210 degrees, something like that. The trade-off for the smaller firing arc is that they will do a bit more damage. The other trade-off is that you can only equip 2 of these at a time. Initially, I was really interested in these because I'm always looking for something to further buff my broadside builds and my fire at will builds, and I thought this would be something really good for that. But the fact that you can only equip 2 of them, I'm kind of iffy about that, because while they do have a narrower firing arc, it's still wide enough to do for a broadside build, so you're still going to have a good amount of coverage on your side arcs. But yeah, only having 2 of them, I don't know. I'm also not thrilled that they are just standard phaser arrays, so they're just going to have the standard phaser array proc, which also isn't very good. I am still curious to see how these end up performing because, like I said, anything that can buff my FA builds or my broadside builds, I am happy to entertain, so fingers crossed, hopefully these don't end up sucking. Actually, scratch that. I hope these do end up suck because otherwise I'm going to have to buy this ship and I don't want to do that. The console this thing comes with is called the Bioelectrical Wave Capacitor. Now this thing's interesting. What it does is basically make a big bioelectrical wave, kind of like you saw in, I forget what episode it was, but it was, when they were escaping from the nebula in season 3. It creates this big blue bioelectric wave, and basically what you do is you want to kind of surf along the wave, and while you're inside it, you or any of your allies, it will significantly buff all your power levels and also give you a huge speed buff. Any enemies caught within the wave will start receiving electrical damage to them. The passives on this console will buff your energy weapon damage, give you a bonus to electrical damage, and buff your weapon subsystem power. And if you have this thing equipped on the Constitution III, it's got a unique animation where the nacelle vents will open up, just like it did in the show. I thought that was a cool touch. This console definitely isn't going to break the meta in any sort of way, but it's definitely got some practical use. The speed buff is always nice to have, especially on certain TFOs, and the buffs to your energy weapon damage, that's always nice, and it feeds further into your power levels, that's also going to feed into your energy weapon damage. Yeah, I do like the further emphasis on more power levels. The Starship trait is called Thunder Run, and while you have it equipped, every time you use Fire at Will, Beam Overload, or your cloaking device, you are granted a bonus damage buff to your beam damage and evasion. And if you're in threatening stance, it will give you a nice buff to your threat generation. Now, this trait I am very curious about because I know they didn't give any numbers here on the tooltip in the blog, because of course they didn't, but on 10-4 Weekly, that was showing as 20% bonus damage, which that's a nice amount of bonus damage. The thing I'm really curious about is that, does this have any sort of internal cooldown? Will it just trigger anytime I activate Fire at Will or Beam Overload or my cloaking device? Or is this going to have some sort of hidden 1-minute cooldown or something like some traits do? Because that is going to make the difference on whether or not this is a useful Starship trait. So if this trait doesn't have some sort of lockout cooldown, or even if it does and it's just really low, this trait will be really good. But if it does have some sort of lockout cooldown that's like a minute long or something like that, like some traits do, then this is going to be a very bad trait, and that will be a shame. Because I really want Fire at Will to be more useful than it is right now, because I really love that firing mode. I love that play style, but it doesn't keep up like the other firing modes do, and I really wish they would change that. Fire at Will used to be like the top play style for DPS way back in the day, and then Cryptic nerfed it into the ground because, Cryptic. But yeah, ever since then they've been hesitant to kind of give it too much because I think they're afraid it's gonna like overpower all the other firing modes, which is a ridiculous thing. There's no way Fire at Will is going to do more damage than like a torpedo build. So yeah, overall, the Constitution III, it's not the horrible piece of crap that I was hoping it to be. It has a decent bridge officer layout. The console is a bit gimmicky, but it's not bad. I feel like a lot of people would have a lot of fun with this. The Starship trait has a lot of potential. I'm very curious about that, but I'm hoping they don't end up ruining it. Even the special phasers, again, a little iffy on those, but again, there's potential there. The big downsides, though, is that it's going to be just a plain cruiser, so it's going to have nothing but tanking traits in its mastery package. It doesn't have any of the fun extras that like multi-mission cruisers or dreadnoughts or even battle cruisers get, because at least battle cruisers get some crit severity in their mastery. And I feel like that 4-4 weapons layout is going to be a bit of a deal breaker for a lot of players, but this ship feels like it was designed to be a broadsider because of the starship trait, plus those new phaser arrays that it comes with. And I'm kind of hoping that's the case, because I'm really hoping that means they're going to start introducing more things to help out broadside builds, because I love broadside builds, and I really wish they didn't suck as much as they do in comparison to forward-facing builds. So I really appreciate the broadsider love, and I hope to see more of it. It'd be really nice to see 4-4 layouts actually be worth something. So yeah, the Constitution III, not a bad ship, but not a great ship. Comes with some interesting toys, but I will also say the Lexington is still a better ship. Cryptic also announced some new stuff coming to the R&D system. I know, new R&D stuff. This is incredible. These are going to be some new consoles that are going to have some different effects that they're hoping to kind of take away some of the focus from like everything being so very tactical focused and kind of spread out some of the focus. Not that they're doing anything to the tactical stuff. It's just they're adding some new stuff that they're hoping will kind of give you some more options. These new consoles are going to be new advanced engineering consoles and new advanced science consoles. One of the things with these, you will only be able to use one career track of these at a time. You will not be able to mix and match between advanced engineering and advanced science consoles. Though I'm pretty sure you'll be able to mix and match within the career track, so you'll be able to use any amount of either of the advanced engineering consoles at a time, or same with the science consoles, but you won't be able to use like the Hangarcraft power transmission console and the energy field gradient projectile console at the same time, because one is engineering and one is science. They're also introducing a bunch of new batteries. I'll get to those in a minute. But the consoles, some of them are kind of interesting, some of them are kind of not. The first one is called the Isomagnetic Plasma Distribution Manifold, and the big theme with this one is that it's a big power buff to your weapons subsystem. It's really straightforward. It just improves your weapons power and your maximum weapons power, and it also stacks to further improve your max weapons power. So get a bunch of these and you will be able to get some really impressive maximum power buffs. Now, I'm a little cautiously optimistic about this one because, again, power isn't that big of a deal. You know, like power you can really get a lot of, but the fact that this stacks, that's rather interesting. But this is only going to stack with each other. There are plenty of things that increase maximum power levels that don't stack with other things, so we'll see just how high those power levels can actually get. But this is something that is clearly meant to further help out energy weapon builds, and that is something I do appreciate, because everything has been very torpedo focused lately. This next console is the one I'm really excited about, the Hangarcraft Power Transmission Console. With this console, it improves the weapons power and max weapons power of all your pets, as well as providing a bonus torpedo damage to them. The buffs are increased by 40% per rank, so a 5-star Hangar pet will receive plus 200% to bonus, or 3 times total. So that is going to be the potential for a lot of bonus damage to your Hangar pets, and there's going to be further emphasis to try to keep them alive so they can rank up. I am a little annoyed that they made this an engineering console, however, because, frankly, because it's an engineering console, this is going to help out flight deck carriers a lot more than it's going to help out science carriers. And really, science carriers really need the help a lot more, because those are the ones that have been struggling this whole time, because they don't have a secondary deflector, so their science abilities aren't that great, but at the same time, none of their other stuff is that great, and the Hangar pets have always been like their key strength that's just never really been utilized, and this is kind of further unlocking that. But at the same time, you know, science carriers, they're not going to be, you know, they're not known for their engineering console slots. Not like flight deck carriers, which are basically cruisers. They're going to have a bunch of engineering console slots, so those are going to help those a lot more than they're going to help side carriers, which actually need the help, and that's kind of what bugs me about these. That said, I'm still very excited for them, and I'm sure they're going to be, you know, well, I won't say I'm sure they're going to be great consoles, because who knows, you know, they're not out yet, but I'm hyped for them, and I'm really glad to see the pet love. Next is the Energy Field Gradient Projector, and simply put, it's a shield siphon and it increases drain. This could be interesting for drain builds. I know drain builds have always been kind of niche, and I feel like they're going to be excited. You know, people who like to use drain builds are going to be excited for this console to see, you know, how this can improve drain builds, because, I mean, Drain builds are interesting. They're weird. They can effectively used. They could be really nice when running TFO runs. You know, they're great for like kind of mild support, but also good for just straight up breaking things. It's great. And the last one is the Exotic Particle Amplifier. This one will give a base bonus damage buff to all exotic abilities that will scale with your EPG, which will max out at 500, and will give a bonus damage buff to non-Bridge Officer exotic abilities, so like your consoles and stuff. So a bit of a bonus damage buff to your Bridge Officer exotic abilities, so that's like Gravity Well, Chemosite, stuff like that, anything that deals radiation damage that comes from your Bridge Officers, and then a bonus damage buff to your consoles, which I'm surprised they give bonus damage to the console stuff, because frankly the console stuff usually ends up being more powerful. I guess they figured that the consoles are going to have a longer cooldown, so they're not going to be used quite as often, so it won't equal to quite as much DPS, but at the same time, unconventional systems is a thing. Next up are the new consumable batteries, which, I mean, nothing really much to say about those. They're going to work like normal batteries that already exist in the game. They're just going to buff different skills. This first one is going to be Shield Pen. That's not bad, but, I mean, Shield Pen's already pretty easy to get. Crit chance, this one definitely one worth looking at, depending on how much crit chances it's going to be. But, yeah, that could be something really useful if you're struggling to get crit chance out of your build. Next one is hull regeneration, more of a tanking thing, but honestly, hull tanking is already not difficult. I don't see this one being all that useful, especially if it's going to share a cooldown with all the others. Next one is for crit severity to projectiles. That is, again, it's going to depend on how much crit severity it is, but that has the potential to be really nice for torpedo builds. But at the same time, I'm really bummed that it only affects torpedoes. I just heard the mailman drop off the mail and he heard me talking about torpedoes and he probably thinks I'm really weird now. But yeah, I'm bummed that these only affect torpedoes because frankly, I've said this 100 times, energy weapons need the help more. Torpedo builds are already overpowered like crazy. They don't need more help. Though when this was brought up on 10-4 Weekly, they did say that this is just kind of like the first wave of this new stuff. They're hoping to do more of this stuff in the future, and so that doesn't discount the possibility that they could do a crit severity battery that only affects energy weapons as well. So fingers crossed for that. This next one just buffs auxiliary power, which I don't know why that's a thing. We already have batteries that buff auxiliary power. I don't understand why we need another battery that buffs auxiliary power. And then the last one buffs it buffs shield regeneration. They seriously made a shield regeneration battery. That's just funny. I'm not even gonna say anything about that one. Now, in order to obtain these new consoles, they are going to have to be crafted, and with these new advanced consoles, they're introducing a new crafting material that is only going to be obtainable from elite TFOs. So if you're going to want to get your hands on these, you're probably going to have to play some elite TFOs. That said, the consoles themselves will also be able to be sold on the exchange, so if you don't play Elite TFOs, don't worry, you'll have a backup to get these, and that'll be through the exchange. Though, no idea what these things are going to cost yet, because it's going to depend on just how well they end up performing. I'm guessing these Hangar Bay ones are going to be expensive. So yeah, those are the stats for the new Constitution III, plus some info about the new consoles coming to the R&D system. So, what do you guys think? You excited for the Constitution 3? Are you interested in the new consoles? Let me know in the comments down below. And while you're down there, be sure to hit like and subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. If you'd like to further support the channel, you can hit the join button to become a member, hit the super thanks button, or you can find the link to the merch store in the video's description. If you're ever shopping on the Epic Game Store, be sure to use my creator code STU1701. Doesn't cost you anything extra, and I really appreciate it. Either way, my name's Stu, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching. I said the last part backwards. No one will notice.